Sharma, and I work as a faculty at IIT Delhi at the Department of Biochemical Engineering and Biotechnology, where I'm into research and teaching. I've been associated with IIT Delhi since 2008. Before that, I had a brief stint at NIT Allahabad, from where I started my career in India. I've had an exposure of the European world, of the European scientific vigor through my 7 years of stay in Germany. First 3 years for my PhD, and then followed by my postdoc years. That was approximately for 4 years. I was born in Varanasi, spent my childhood years kind of living a nomadic lifestyle, if I may say so, by virtue of my father's job. So till my 12th standard, I actually changed schools 8 times. In terms of my family, my closest family comprises of my parents, my twin kids in their teens, my sister, brother-in-law, and their son. And my interests include, besides teaching, I'm interested in traveling. That's a passion for me. Especially, I cherish my solo travels. And lately, I've also found some solace in watercolors. In terms of my early life and education, my father was working as a geologist with the Tata Steels, which required him to travel a lot. So I was fortunate enough to have traveled along with him across the country, mostly in mining belts. Now, these mining belts are actually remote areas, far from the cosmopolitan culture, very close to nature, and in many instances we were very close to tribal life too. I already mentioned about the frequent change of base and thereby the school. So a lot of what I am today has been by virtue of these vast experiences that I've gathered during my childhood. The different schools, the array of communities and the culture, they gave me an exposure to diversity right from my early days. Unintentionally, I was broadening my horizons. I learned adaptability, I learned empathy, inclusion, though of course I have to admit that per se, I didn't understand those words back then during my early life. It helped me a lot make great friends across a diversity of segments. And fortunately, I'm still connected to them. Even with my friends from nursery, I'm still connected very closely. During my early days, I drew a lot of influence from my name, and I was constantly honing the right side of my brain. So I was, and I still am, an enthusiast of fine arts, dramatics, dance, public speaking, etc. How science happened to me, that's a different story. I mean, it's like you don't choose your profession, profession chooses you, and that stands true for me. Completely true for me. So this is exactly what had happened to me. So there have been many influences in my personal and, for that matter, even professional life. Whatever I'm today is because of each piece of transaction that has given a meaningful interpretation to my life. Just for example, my early life in the remote India, having closely observed and having been a part of the tribes, it taught me how bare minimalist resources, with just those, one can be happy and content. Then the next phase, which is the hostel life, that brought about fierce independence in me. And then there are several transformations in my life. I can categorically divide them into phases. So from spending my early childhood in a very open ecosystem, I moved to Varanasi, where I realized that my roots, in fact, I come from a very orthodox Brahmin family. And this was not directly imposed to me by my family, but the way the society saw of us. And again, the next phase was going to Germany, which gave me a completely different outlook towards life. I started appreciating cultures beyond India. I learned how this balance between the East and West cultures can actually develop different dimensions of life. There were absolutely no discrimination vis-a-vis the community that I had come from. So on whatever front you talk of, there were no biases. And fortunately, when I returned to India in 2007, I came back to an India which was transforming to a gender agnostic living. So the gender barriers were being shattered at that point of time. And I really feel I was fortunate enough to have, or I am fortunate enough to have experienced that change. When I talk about influences in professional life, when I think of all those people and the incidents that have influenced my professional life, the first person to cross my mind happens to be my maternal uncle. Science happened to me courtesy my maternal uncle. He's been my GPS throughout my career till now. The deep-rooted values of work ethics, that dates back to my PhD mentors from Germany, whether it was my PhD supervisor or my postdoc supervisor, my collaborators there. So that happens to be the DNA of my professional career. I mean, that I hold as my core. Post that, I took a sabbatical before I started my career in India. And I'm very grateful to the leaders at NIT Allahabad, that's the institution where I joined, who displayed immense confidence in me as a returning mother. Then IT Delhi happened, and I really can't put enough in words here. The overall environment has been a major influence and a driving force. My colleagues, the fellow scientists and students, I draw a lot of influence from them. Just being involved in this world-class teaching, the research environment that we have here, the interaction with the brightest of minds, all this has actually sharpened my skills. The journey has been of continuous growth. I mean, right from the time I came to India, it has been of continuous growth. And that happens, I think that's a very natural process when you interact with the finest brains and contribute towards building and nurturing, which in turn gives you a lot of professional contentment. So yeah, that has been my influences in my personal and professional life. My professional journey and the milestones, well, the first milestone was the crossroad of decision between arts and science. So as a teenager, for me, this was a major decision that set the course of my professional life. Then my return from Germany, where I could actually see a flourishing career ahead of me, but it was a personal choice, which brought me back to India. My next milestone was entry into the Indian academia, and that too in a newly established department. So the objective here was to institutionalize the department. In fact, starting my career at NIT Allahabad was a major leap of faith for me, because and that actually came from the interactions that I had with the leadership out there. That had a major, that can be considered as a major milestone for me. The next big choice for me was to move out from the comfort zone at NIT Allahabad and to create my niche in a highly competitive environment like IIT Delhi. There might be a number of students, a number of papers and projects that followed, but the first ones are always the dearest. So whether it's the first PhD student or the first paper or the first collaboration, I mean, all these happen to be the milestones that followed. Journey just started in leaps and bounds, and there's no seeing back. In terms of my personal milestone, if you look at the personal journey, like I mentioned, I had a privileged childhood, but by design of being the elder one, I had imbibed certain attributes like being responsible, like being the nurturer, caregiver, right from the childhood. And it also gave me the freedom to explore all what I wanted within the limited resources, of course. As a result of no barriers on me, complete confidence of my parents, my teachers, my close circle, my natural style developed as an extrovert, as an approachable person. The next major milestone, or I would say a life-changing experience, was my stint of hostel life at Krishnamurti Foundation School. Again, just by virtue of being in that place, in an ecosystem with that strong values, in the whole setup, I was organically absorbing those. it led to, again, a lot of broadening of my horizons. I made some great friends over there. So the place has an important role to play for me. I would think of the next milestone, which was again a personal choice, when I found a partner in someone with a very diverse background. Unfortunately, we parted ways, but I count it as my next milestone for the kind of impact it has had on my evolution. 2006 was a major deciding year when I gave birth to my twins. And since then, life has changed dramatically. So since then, all my choices revolve around how to give my twins a better future. And frankly speaking, now all my milestones are the multitude of happiness that my kids bring along. So whether it's the recent selection of my son as the head boy and daughter as the general secretary, I would say all my milestones are really centered around just what they achieve. I really can't point out a single incident here, just because it was so holistic. I mean, when I look at it, it was really holistic. The environment really had a very strong impact on my growth, my development. So like I said, just the fact that I was so close to nature for my entire childhood led to me being empathetic, being considerate about them, how to maintain an ecosystem, how do you live with these resources that are so minimalist. I mean, being happy still. I really can't point out one particular incidence in that context. Yeah. So I'm an environmental microbiologist, and my main focus has been towards some of the sustainability development goals laid down by the UN. To specifically talk about them, I have been working towards three main SDGs. One is SDG 2, that is zero hunger. Here, I have been working towards ensuring food security. I have been trying to enhance crop production by using sustainable means, specifically microbes and the microbiome, which can enhance soil health without negatively impacting the health. They actually address the issue of enhancing crop productivity. Then the other SDG that I'm working on is actually SDG 13, that is climate action. Here, again, using these microbes, using the microbiome-based approaches, I'm working towards mitigation of the negative impact of climate change, especially on agriculture through eco-friendly approaches. And finally, I work on SDG 15, which is life on land. Here, I'm involved in conserving and also in restoring biodiversity, by which the idea is to minimize chemicals and to popularize amendments which are more eco-friendly. So my main stakeholders, or the first stakeholders, happen to be the rural community, the farmers. How I work towards how my research can bring about an upliftment of the rural communities, that is my prime goal, by offering them a better livelihood. There are many such failures and many such challenges, but with every one of it, it's like jeet gaye to jeet gaye, haar gaye to seek gaye. I have been fortunate to have learned from my failures. I mean, they have really shaped me. This is what I am because of my failures and life experiences. And I have bounced back. I really feel good about it that I have bounced back stronger in each case. One of the most significant failures in my life has been when I qualified the MBBS entrance examination and I could not join or pursue medicine. So this was a challenging situation, but in the depth of my heart, I was really happy because it was never my aspiration. It was more to prove to the society or prove to the family. The next major setback was when I decided to part ways with my partner. Single parenting has been, on one extreme, it's been very challenging, and on the other extreme, it's been really rewarding. But right from school admissions for my kids to getting the passports reissued, and there's so many more things, the challenges are ongoing. But there's a motto that I religiously follow. And that is, I refuse to sink. Okay, so theoretically speaking, you say success is the things that you achieve. Fulfillment of aspirations is one parameter by which you can measure success. Um, for me, it's also to do with the smaller things, the day-to-day actions that are parameters of success. It's about living in the moment. If I'm happy today, and in each transaction with world now, even for example, the way I'm talking to you, I'm successful. Uh, if I'm able to make the people around me, whether it's my students or whether it's my kids, if I'm able to make them independent enough to make choices and then not regret those, I'm successful. That's my parameter for success. If I can make a day special for my parents, if I can bring to them day-to-day happiness, sincere efforts to bring any kind of the slightest of difference in a person's life, it makes me happy and content. And then I say I'm successful. So basically being involved in the moment to be able to contribute positively to each transaction, whether it is with my gardener or whether it is with my director or my kids and students, it is for me success. No, I had more challenges as a single mother than as a woman. I would say that, especially being in India. I think it's because of the environment that I'm in at IIT Delhi or in the academia in such kind of an institution. There's a lot of awareness and people are open to women being around. There's a lot of representation of women. So I would say I'm lucky in that manner, yes. Um, when I look back at it, teaching was something that I've been doing right from my childhood, making the dolls sit in a queue and then teaching them on a blackboard and correcting their copies. I think somewhere down the line, I was always inclined towards teaching. And even if I was to take a choice, make a choice between teaching and research, I would always go for teaching because that is really close to my heart. I'm passionate about teaching. The way I grow when I teach is something very appealing to me. So I would say even though I had a lot of interest in the fine arts, somewhere teaching was, I was trying to develop that side of me as well. So like I said, science happened to me because of my maternal uncle, who also happens to be in science. And I think at that point of time, fine arts, and I think even now, fine arts has its own limitations in terms of the career choices. So when people saw, or my close family saw that I had performed really well in my 10th, they said that there is no other way. I mean, it has to be either a doctor or an engineer. You cannot go for fine arts. There were a sect of people who said, okay, fine, you can take up fine arts after your 12th, but give science a try. You cannot just say you want to go into fine arts. Keep that as a passion. Still now, you consider fine arts more as a hobby and not as a career option. I know when I'm discussing this with my daughter, who's also inclined towards fine arts, I tell her just the same story, that this is what had happened to me. Yeah, of course, I'm not forcing her into science, but I think it all turned out very well. I mean, I'm pursuing my fine arts as well, though not as a career. I am really content with the choices that I have made, or I was asked to make. Talking about social impact, I look at it in two dimensions. So I'm a teacher and I'm a researcher. In terms of my impact that I create by virtue of being a faculty at IIT Delhi, it has been majorly towards nurturing the future generations of India. So touching the lives of students by means of contributing to teaching. I believe the impact has also been in terms of creating a congenial environment towards grooming a very diverse group where women from various stages of life, they form a majority of my team, whether as a postdoctoral scientist or a doctoral scientist. I have most of them are women. So I'm developing my group for equal representation of women in science. In terms of my research, like I mentioned, my major contribution has been towards environmental sustainability, targeting the rural population. And yeah, so we've had success stories in bringing about enhancement of crop yield, in mitigating certain biotic and abiotic stresses, like, for example, salinity stress or drought stress, which Indian agriculture is right now facing. We have had a chance to come up with eco-friendly solutions for these. So that has been the societal impact in terms of my research. Yes, so of course, my paying back, when I talk of paying back, I'm putting in my best effort in grooming the next generation through my role as a teacher. There are instances, especially in science, where you have girl students or female students or women students taking pauses and breaks because of personal reasons. And I have really, I know that I have really influenced students to pursue. I mean, I've had students who've completed 4.5 years of PhD, and just in the last semester, they would say, I need to drop out because of a family reason. I'm getting married, my husband is a XYZ place, and or I'm having a baby and I cannot continue further. So like I said, I think for me, it's important that I'm one of the few scientists who would make it congenial for the female scientists to really reach their goals despite all the. In this context, I would also say that being approachable helps. I mean, they can come to me with any kind of issues that they face, personal or professional. If you are there to hear them out, that brings about a change. I'm an environmental microbiologist, but I would not like to go into the scientific aspect of it. The environment of IIT Delhi, it automatically inculcates sustainable lifestyle. With this ecosystem, it's very easily attainable. There is minimal dependency on any motor vehicle. We have our own kitchen gardens wherein sustainability comes to some extent. We have gone paperless. In most of the aspects, we are paperless. IIT Delhi is a safe haven for actually a diverse flora and fauna. So we create a balance between in the ecosystem when you talk about maintaining diversity. Personally, besides all this, I follow the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And me being an environmentalist, I especially work towards spreading the word around, increasing awareness amongst people around me about the significance of sustainable living and how to attain it. Like I said, everything revolves around my twins now. But that's the personal aspect. I would like to see them as individuals who are beautiful souls. I mean, they already are, but they would develop into empathetic individuals. But my main goal here is to see my research, which is as of now in the very fundamental stage, the stage of fundamental sciences, to see the light of the day, to bring that research into translation. The work has already started. We are tying up with various farmers, we're tying up with various agricultural institutions to see the light of the day. But I want these approaches, these sustainable approaches, to really reach the grassroots level. That's how I see myself 10, 20 years down the line. The kick is actually in the emails that I receive from my students. These very short, sweet emails that I receive, that I have actually helped them do XYZ, motivated them when they were down. Yes, that is a boost. I mean, the feedback that I get, we have a system of course feedbacks, and that is a really motivating factor for me. So like I said, I mean, I'm successful when I get just one of those emails every week or so. I'm successful, and that keeps me driving. One of my major stress buster happens to be my friends, meeting up with my friends. I also, like I mentioned, I do a lot of watercolors now, which helps me bring back my energy. And whenever I get a chance or so, if I can, I'm looking forward to pursuing my other hobbies of dancing and even other forms of arts. But I do meditation. I definitely do meditation to keep myself sane. I've thought about this. I mean, this was not in the questionnaire, but I'll still talk about it. I really cannot, if I'm supposed to advise to the 20 years younger Shilpi Sharma, I would say do exactly like you've done. There are absolutely no regrets. And so I would follow the exact same paths that I've followed. Nothing at all. it'll be exactly the same. Like I said, whatever failures that I mentioned, whatever challenges that I mentioned, I am what I am. I'm being interviewed by you because of those challenges. So absolutely nothing. To those minds, I would only say that if you are well informed, if you have been analytical, if your intention is sincere, follow your feeling. Do not be influenced by deterring factors around you. But at the same time, start taking responsibilities with no regrets later for the paths that you choose. So life is all about choices that you make, and it's also about choices that you do not make. So even if the path that you choose is not the popular path, it should give you a sense of content. And in this context, I think the poem by Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken, very beautifully reflects my thought process.